The last thing that I wanted to talk about from this chapter was the section starting on page 265 about writing systems. When we invented writing systems, some maybe 5,000 years ago, this added an additional layer of symbolism to language. Spoken languages are already abstract. For instance, there's nothing particularly red about the word red. If I were to say the word, if I were to use the word domer instead of red, there's nothing more or less red about the word domer, and I could just as easily call that color domer as I call it red. There's no reason why those particular sounds together should mean that particular thing. However, there's also no particular reason why the way I've chosen to write R-E-D on a piece of paper should necessarily represent the sounds that I make when I say red. That's very abstract as well, and it's an additional layer of abstraction. It further removes what's going on the paper from the world. It's an extra layer of abstraction or an extra layer of symbolism. So the word red on a piece of paper represents the sound red that I make when I speak. And that sound red represents something in the real world, a color. Given that, because there's so many, because of this additional layer of abstraction, there's no particular rules about how a writing system should or does translate from spoken auditory stimulus, auditory stimuli to paper. That can happen a number of different ways, and there are lots of different writing systems. The text describes on page 267 3 different kinds. The logographic writing system is like the kind that's used in Chinese. Logographs are taking a one-to-one correspondence between words and written symbols of those words. So, if I were speaking Chinese and I were to say the word red, I would choose to represent that word on paper by writing a single symbol. That symbol would represent a single word. However, the syllabic writing system, which is used in Japanese, is a syllable correspondence. So, if I were to say the word red and represent that, it would also be one character, because the word red is one syllable. But if I were to say computer, because those are 3 different syllables, I would represent that. I would represent those with 3 symbols on a piece of paper. I would write one symbol, for the syllable cum, one for pew, and one for ter. And each one of those syllables corresponds to. Each one of those symbols, corresponds to one of the syllables that is used in the word. This is a very impractical writing approach for some languages. It would never work for English, for instance, because we allow too many different kinds of syllables. In English, basically the only rules we have about syllables are that it has to have one vowel and no more than like 2 or 3 consonants. The rules are very abstract. That vowel can appear at any point in the syllable, and the syllable can be varying lengths. So it would never work for us because we would have to have too many characters written in order to represent all the possible syllables that exist in English. But Japanese has restricted the number of allowable syllables such that there's only about 60 syllables in Japanese that can be repeated in different orders over and over. And when you take those syllables and you represent them on paper, because there's only 60 of them, that's all that has to be memorized. It's like memorizing an alphabet of 60, but it simplifies the system because you don't have to learn like different combinations of letter sounds. So you just have just 60 symbols that you have to memorize, and those symbols each represent a given sound, which is a consonant and a vowel combined in Japanese. Finally, we have an alphabetic inventory, which is a method of writing that uses one letter for one sound, so one symbol for one sound, but not for one syllable, just for an individual sound. This is the most intuitive for us because we're most used to English, so like the sound is represented by the letter R. The sound is represented by the letter M. And we can combine letters together in a given order to make a word. Our alphabetic writing system, our alphabetic inventory, is not a true one because we have too many confusing abstract rules. Too many times we break those rules. We're very inconsistent, and we have lots of different ways of spelling the same sounds. For instance, we can say, if we say f, we can spell it with an F or with a PH. If we, or even as the chapter pointed out with the example of spelling fish, G-H-O-T-I, we could spell F with a G-H. We could spell the sound F with a G-H. So we don't have a true alphabetic inventory. We've sort of combined lots of different concepts into a writing system. But if you're trying to learn Spanish, Spanish is a very easy writing system to learn because it's a true alphabetic inventory where if you hear a sound, then you know how to spell it because it's always spelled with the same symbol. Anyway, so I think that's about all I wanted to talk about from the chapter. There's a few additional concepts, of course, but if you have any particular questions, anything that you're not understanding that you feel like you'd like to, just let me know, and I'm happy to make another recording about that. Take care.